the thing that you got to do high level is make sure that people that join you really believe in what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you don't have missionaries that are joining your organization, they're going to feel lost and forgotten and probably not be as productive.
Yeah. And also I'll say at the top of this episode, we were talking about ask the right questions, solve the right problems. People will often come at you and be like, I need my cells to be yellow. I need to be able to make my cells yellow. They got to be yellow. I can't make my cells yellow. Like, all right, well, why do your cells need to be yellow? Right? If you unpack the problem, there's something else there, right? And we've found that a lot of times where it's like, if you just knee jerk, oh, they need this thing versus unpacking what is the problem to solve, you're going to build the wrong thing unless you get down to the root.
I've gotten to write checks in a lot of contact companies, and I've seen way more pitches than I care to. There are some of the reasons I wouldn't invest is many of the founders did not know that what they need to build next. They had to be told what they need to build next. That's not good. That's literally terrible. I mean, this gets back to everything we're talking about, though. You have to meet the industry to some extent where they are, and you have, as the founders, have to have a strategy to take them where you want to go. And the order of operations, the founding team should be able to determine that. And as you get bigger, then you're going to have to hire product leaders that can also do that because they start understanding how everything's interconnected. Those early hires, if they're not directly connected to you, probably need to be 1 degree of separation so you can really, really vet out who they are and get people that you trust to tell you if they're good or not, because those early hires at a tech company are super important.
What does leadership mean to you?
I guess I'll go is like, I am maybe reusing this, but it is the clarity in the agency. I do think that you need to, how can I put this in different words? People need to be clear on what the objective is, the why behind it, lead with the why and what the objective is, and then offer them the agency to achieve that. And the other thing I'll say that's a little softer is for someone to have gas means that they really give a shit, means that they're passionate, means they need to be vulnerable. You actually do need to be vulnerable to be passionate. And to be vulnerable, you got to feel trusted. And so you've got to figure out a way to establish that trust with someone, especially in a remote native company like we are. You've got to figure out how to get there where they feel like someone has their back. And then that they can engage in conflict and it's okay.
Nothing kills me more than a startup CEO that won't get out and do a demo or take a sales call or actually talk to a customer. Like, that's disgusting. I mean, and there are some, I know several that can't do it. Like, that's insane.
What is Ediphi's IPO story?
So, look, if we actually create the platform for managing pre-construction, then that would be an IPO story. And the reason it's an IPO story is it's the most important phase in all of construction. This is when you break apart design and say design's before pre-con, before construction. No, pre-construction is the phase. It's more important than construction. If your goal is purely to be acquired, raise as little amount of capital as possible. It's flat out it. So early stage, I don't think in investing a lot in marketing. We actually just have one marketing consultant, and that's it. Everything we either do is via blogs, which are super cheap. And almost every time we release a blog, someone reaches out and said, I want to try you. It's like amazing, relatively super cheap lead gen. So you can always find some brand and imaging marketing consultants. Actually should be relatively cost effective just to get your voice out there. And it depends on the stage. So as a seed round, I wouldn't spend any more money on that than that. You should be able to build a good enough book of business on purely just outreach or network or connections and doing some guerrilla tactics. It's not till you actually need to scale, like where you want to build out this sort of SDR model, demand gen model, that I think you should be investing in sort of those top of funnel mechanisms.
Okay, so in this episode we will talk about what does it take to succeed in competitive world of construction technology. We'll unpack leadership strategies, hiring the best talent, and achieving product market fit, as well as strategic decisions and frameworks that help drive growth in construction tech. Okay, so how do you keep your team brought into the strategy and vision as a first one?
Okay, so I think there's a variety of mechanisms, and it depends on the structure of your company, right? Are you guys if your team's in person versus remote? Because this is my, this is my first attempt at construction tech and fully remote. So, distributed team takes more investment. So we recently just did a company-wide offsite, and so you have to invest more in like actually just flying people around. You get to save a bunch of money and not having an office space, but you do have to invest those reinvest those resources and back into the company. I think that you have to do a really good job of explaining what the products are that you're working on and why you're working on them, and how it's going to affect the business. So I think offsites are really good about doing that. You have to hold monthly all hands. Those are kind of the tactical things you got to do. I think though the thing that you got to do high level is make sure that people that join you really believe in what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you don't have missionaries that are joining your organization, they're gonna feel lost and forgotten and probably not be as productive. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. You just don't get that in-person sort of vibe.
Yeah, I mean, all of our people, I think, are passionate and care. And in order to get them to be passionate and care, they got to feel like they're trusted, which means you got to give them some level of agency. And you give them that level of agency if they know what the overall why is, the big picture why, right? And if you provide that clarity, then they can run hard. And I think by and large, our people are running hard. So that's a big one. And then it's like, know the problem. I think we have a great engineering organization. We can solve any problem, solve the right problem. Ask the right questions, solve the right problems is a key one as well.
How big is the team right now, and how is it structured into?
35 to 40, depending on if you're counting contractors or not. We have a lot of contractors because we have a lot of engineers actually overseas. So I think full-time employees were like 22. And then we have a layer of contractors both for HR, for marketing, and for additional engineering capacity.
How do you get people like interested? It's kind of a strange question, but interested in like solving estimating, because you mentioned obviously you guys are like looking at hiring estimators. Maybe they have to come within the profession, but is it difficult to find people that are like passionate about solving like this pre-construction and estimating space?
And do they have a construction background, and that's why they are with you?
We all like our employees have either come from the construction business or they've come from construction technology, right? So, and I really feel like they all are invested.
Has anyone not? I don't think
not
any
yet.
of the full-time.
Any of the full-time? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah. So we're all been invested. We've all invested our careers in this already.
Yeah, so actually finding people for us is not challenging at all. In terms of hiring estimators, we have a ridiculous amount of people reaching out wanting to join. Yeah. And that's also a good signal that we're touching a nerve, because there's a lot of estimators that like are at firms using some of our competitors like, yeah, you guys are going to do something great. Can I just join? I'm like, okay, well, could you get your company to adopt us first?
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what happens is like we demo to a company and you
prove you can sell.
Exactly. Land your company, then we'll talk. But like that's how some of our people, that's how we've got them, is we like did a demo to their company and then they reach out like, I want to join you.
Oh, nice. Okay. What's some of the key KPIs and performance metrics that you consider essential for like within the sector or perhaps what you guys are doing? And is there one kind of KPI, I think you might have mentioned it earlier actually, that you're really focusing on at the moment?
I wish there was one core KPI that we said definitively, this is what we need to get a customer to do in order to be hooked into Ediphi. We haven't distilled the company down to that one. We probably are distilling it right now down to like 7 or 8 based upon number of projects they're creating, how many estimates are in there, how many people are engaged and stuff like that. So all of those product utilization KPIs or tracking or starting to track. We've been so hands-on. We've like literally on all of the new customers every call and touching in. It's been much more such a super close relationship, but we're getting so many customers. We have to have a little bit better visibility. I think more than that, we are actually tracking our penetration with like the ENR top 400. Want to know how we're doing. We realize that we have several big customers now, and we realize that there's a maturation process in how people are going to adopt Ediphi from a big perspective. And so if you're looking at like, how does this business look like when we want to raise a Series B? We're talking about, startups and everything else. We want to understand, like when they buy, like, okay, we are going to pay for this for a small subset over a pre-con team to start working in. How does that growth look so it starts adopting? So we're going through one customer. We have two big customers that have purchased these small pilots that are going to expand. How does that expansion rate look like, and how big does that grow? So we want to know, okay, what's our penetration with these big customers, and then what's their overall contract value once they are fully deployed?
How long do you think this pilots will take time to unravel these KPIs, or?
So it depends. We have our standard paid pilot, which is going to be 4 to 6 weeks, right? But when what I'm talking about is like, no, they're purchasing a year-long contract for like 15 or 50 users because they're a multi-thousand person organization. So that first contract is, no, we want to really, really test drive this, make sure it works, get conviction on all the people that are working there. And after that, then we will say, we're going to fully deploy you. And full deployment, they're apprehensive, even though we can move fast, so they can even fully scale across their organization. So understanding like, okay, what does it take to onboard 500 people?
Yeah, so it's like a land and expand.
500 companies or
500 people within one company.
Oh, wow. And how do you think about the relationship building between, let's say, key account manager and a company? Do you think that account manager should be dedicated to a company, or this is not that relevant to Ediphi as kind of one company, and whoever from Ediphi touches base with?
So
the
there's a difference between now and a long tail. Like long tail, depending on if you're an enterprise account, a mid-market account, or an SMB account, you'll either have a sign account manager. Maybe there's probably enterprise and mid-market will all have assigned account managers, and SMBs will not. But right now, we have someone who's the primary point of contact, but everyone's jumping in. That's why I think on a previous episode I said, like, it's the best time to ever engage with us, because you can get access to this guy, you can get access to me, you can get access to Sarah, VP of Customer Success, you can get access to Trey, you can get access to Nito, all of these people that like might not be as accessible down the road. So like, we have someone who's primarily responsible for the account, but we are a team at Ediphi. Actually, even how we're going to be structuring our go-to-market and our compensation packets, the package, go-to-compensation packages. It's much more team-oriented than individual than you typically see at a company.
So at the stage A, right, as you are, how do you balance product development and team priorities and customer demands, perhaps?
So I guess product development, like what we focus on, what we aim to build. Well, I think it helps that we understand the customer. We do discovery with our customers so we can understand what's important for them. But when they say it to us, there's not a lot of mystery there. We understand what they are, what they're saying. And then when it comes to product prioritization, we essentially have looked at this as, first, we need to make sure that they don't feel like they're making any sacrifice from going from their desktop incumbent solutions to the cloud. And in fact, there were some things. And probably before the end of this year, those things will be resolved. Then they can believe in us. Then we can mount on these next future looking features that get them to believe that we'll take them to the future. But it's really hard to get someone to believe you'll take them to the future if you don't meet them where they're at.
How do you know where to allocate resources within to the product development or?
Oh, we're putting a lot in product.
So yeah,
You mean internally?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish I could say there was a science to this, and there is more of a science if you didn't have such a unique origin story as Ediphi. So when we spun out this company and we bought this asset, we already had a top 20 GC fully deployed using us, which had product needs. So we have a certain level of product requirements and development roadmaps that we're committed to. So this is stuff that we had to support. So we had to function that along with, what do we need to do to go get a bunch of new customers? So there is tension between what people fully deployed would like, which is like more stuff than what we want to do to make the sales cycles faster on net new customers. And so that balancing act it's actually quite challenging. And it's really subjective. And I think the only way we would get to resolution is me and Mike just
Argue.
Get really pissed at each other. And then some of our customers yell at us too.
I guess it's a matter of priorities, right? What do you want to do? We want to provide more features to the current customers, or we want to grow more customers?
Right. And yeah, it's really tough. I guess the way I think about it is, at the end of the day, we should sit down with every customer and tell them whatever our opinion is, this is our opinion and why. And usually you just end up with like, oh, we get that. Almost always. Because anything we're working on is usually creating value for the other person. They just prioritize it in a different way. But we probably prioritize it this way because there's some constraints that we have to do this before that.
Yeah. And also I'll say at the top of this episode, we were talking about ask the right questions, solve the right problems. People will often come at you and be like, I need my cells to be yellow. I need to be able to make my cells yellow. They got to be yellow. I can't make my cells yellow. Like, all right, well, why do your cells need to be yellow? Right? If you unpack the problem, there's something else there, right? And we've found that a lot of times where it's like, if you just knee jerk, oh, they need this thing versus unpacking what is the problem to solve, you're going to build the wrong thing unless you get down to the root, right? And we found that many times.
I mean, I will say this though, at an early stage company, a seed and A, Mike and I know the problems that we need to go out and solve. Yeah. We do go to customers for our UI, UX and optimization. The founders should have a concept of the strategy that they need to take the business, because they should know they should have a vision for the company. So right now we are in a good place in that the founders get to push Ediphi in the direction that we believe the industry needs to go. That's the true advantage of being a startup relative to a big company. Like if a big company would have product managers go talk to a bunch of customers, what do you want us to build? We'd stack rank these things. There'd be no strategic initiative. And so you'd build stuff hodgepodge, not in alignment with no, let's go accomplish a goal. So like Mike said, we have a list of items that we think completely eliminates anything you can't do in a desktop, on a desktop, you can now do on a cloud. And now we want to show you what you can't do on a desktop and show you how you do it in the cloud, which is really cool.
I think if you take that narrative too of where we want to take it, like I think we were talking about, the real estate development life cycle, and then owning the whole pipe, and then taking the end of the pipe and attaching it to the beginning so past projects can inform future ones. Like if we have that storyline we're trying to tell, and we have all this functionality we're planning on delivering to that end, you can take that yellow cell that someone requested and tie it to that storyline and be like, isn't it really that what you want to do is be able to tag someone that they need to review this for a reason? And isn't that really about this collaboration flow, right? And you start tethering people to your storyline that you're going to build.
I think and this is where I see a lot, I've got to write checks in a lot of contact companies, and I've seen way more pitches than I care to. There are some of the reasons I wouldn't invest is many of the founders did not know that what they need to build next. They had to be told what they need to build next. That's not good. That's literally terrible. You cannot be that early and not know what you need to build next. Otherwise, you're going to build a completely not strategic roadmap. It's going to be who screams and polls and puts up the loudest fit is going to get attention.
We have so many things we want to build. We're resource bound on being able to get them all done, right? And so it's just like arguing over what goes first. Like that's really what it comes down to.
Okay, maybe that ties nicely into the next question then. So how do you sort of balance innovation within what you're building and keeping it quite gentle? So there's this term that we come across quite a lot, gentle disruption. Like you can't just go and create some super duper AI, blah, 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 one-click estimate tool. How do you guys sort of balance that? Is it?
I mean, this gets back to everything we're talking about, though. You have to meet the industry to some extent where they are, and you have, as the founders, have to have a strategy to take them where you want to go. And the order of operations, the founding team should be able to determine that. And as you get bigger, then you're going to have to hire product leaders that can also do that because they start understanding how everything's interconnected.
Understanding who you're building for.
Yeah, understand the problem, solve the right problems.
How do you keep Ediphi ahead in the age of artificial intelligence?
You had to throw that in there, didn't you? Didn't we just have a call with one of our big clients about that? Yeah, there's a lot of prerequisite work we need to do. I'm excited about it too, but it's this funny paradigm we're in where it's this double-edged sword where on one half of it, people are worried about missing out. It's this FOMO. And then on the other half of it, it's like, oh, Sam Altman's going to steal my data, right? And it's my data and you can't have it. And it's like, we all just need to relax because no one's data is in good enough shape to do it anyways. So there's a lot of steps we need to take to get the data there. And that's the journey we're on. I mean, we have invested in AI and there's demonstratable, right? But that's not today. You need to know where you're going so that you can prepare to get there, but we're in the prepare to get there right now. And that's not just us, that's our customers.
Yeah, so pre-construction by and large doesn't have a lot of good data to train some of the AI on because it's not been in the cloud or it's in disparate systems or it's not normalized or it's behind a Citrix wall. And so one of the things that we're priding ourselves on is creating that standardization to go from I have an idea to a contract, but doing it in a way that we can start training models so that they can start developing estimates for you based upon the simple inputs that we talked about before. Client, I have an objective for this real estate asset. And then based upon your historical data, that model's coming up with like, okay, here's basically a cost model based upon this information, but it's taking a lot of steps out of your way so you can start having more meaningful conversations. Okay, how do we optimize this for you, customer?
Yeah, and there's even real use cases that we can provide that confidence of our users and remove that anxiety if we can check that their estimate is of quality and that they're not I priced a job once, I forgot a roof. I'm not joking, right? And it was at least a boomerang project that kept on coming back so I could like fix my problem before like I had to admit it to my operations friends. But like, you know, it's really nice to have someone just checking things for you. And, you know, I'll say like, really, we're talking about it being a future. We've made steps. Like we do have that large language model that we've tuned with construction lingo because believe it or not, as well as these huge models are, they don't understand gypsum, wallboard, GWB, plasterboard, drywall are all the same thing. Right? Even teaching them those synonyms or something like we have our own lingo. And we use that, but we use it internally to take customer data and to enrich it so that we can bring it into our environment in the quality that it needs to be. That's how we use it today. That'll be productized in the future.
Speaking of this AI, how difficult is it to get the data that people have available within their organizations to the level that it can be read or understood by AI? Like, where's the journey? How long it will take and how difficult it is? Because right now everyone is talking about AI. Okay, it has to happen. And there is a vision of this AI, but the path from where it is to where everyone wants it to be is the difficulty, right?
How difficult is it? It's quite challenging. It requires you to completely overhaul your infrastructure because you're operating on how you're building costs for clients in different locations. All right, step back the way everyone else. We are trying to solve that problem. Foundationally, it's funny, I met Mike this morning for breakfast and I told him I had a dream about AI. I'm not joking. I said, Mike, I think this whole conversation is kind of funny because we could release these things and call it AI and everyone would think it's AI. It's cool because there's a lot of AI out there that's, you know, not actually.
The definition is stretched.
It's stretched. look, we need workflow processes in the cloud that we all agree upon and we can understand and that can be adopted and deployed across an organization. From then,
This is what you're doing.
this is what we're doing right now. That's the problem we're trying to solve, is create a process for your pre-construction activity to take place. Once we do that, we can start training models on the data that you're building about the projects you're running through there. Because we'll understand those projects intimately and contextually, because you're using us in a way that we can translate to it. And once you start doing that, then we can start using that information to train the models to reduce the amount of work it takes you to even build an estimate. We can't eliminate pre-con though. And so that's a key differentiator.
AI doesn't work on Citrix?
No, it won't.
Well, I'll say this too, is like there shouldn't be, and I was part of like the data organization for Suffolk, and I was on the data council and all this, and you spend all this effort and resources on harmonizing data and cleaning data, and the reality is it's too late. That's too late if you have to clean up all this mess. Go to where the data is created and fix it there, and that's what we're trying to do. Is like the byproduct of people using our solution is data that's in a paradigm that can be used and useful, right? And so if we could get an organization using it, then that's the other part of it. It has to be their information that they use as their kit of parts. So they also need to use our data paradigm to create what is structural steel? It includes the steel, it includes the metal deck, it includes the slab on top, in the way they price it, in the way they think of it, so that when AI is saying, this is structural steel is the way for this, it brings in their context, right? And those are the steps that are today.
Nothing else. Nothing to add. Go.
Nothing more about your dream last night?
No.
Let's not go there. That's a different podcast. That's extra.
We'll save that one for off camera.
Dream about AI and construction tech. That's it.
Okay, fine.
He dreams about Citrix. He loves it.
I have nightmares about Citrix.
Can you just tell us a little bit about hiring, and is there a process Ediphi follows? How do you hire the best people?
And how do you fire as well?
I'll talk about hiring. You talk about firing. Everyone has strengths and weaknesses. I would say that me being process-oriented and building a hiring process that was, so now I don't do a lot of the hiring. The way I went about hiring was about staffing people that I thought we could hire around. And the two biggest examples on the go-to-market side are Sarah and Trey. And so Sarah DeBaca, who has been in the industry, many people know very, very well, was referred to us, and everyone loves her. And because she wants to do customer success, it is about a relationship at the highest level. And so she is a very process-oriented individual. She came with great references, and that worked really well. So I think the thing was we both knew people who knew each other, and we both had people that vouched for each other, and we had the right career experience, and it was the right fit at the right time. So it's worked insanely well. Likewise with Trey, we had similar paths. He's from construction. He's been at sales at PlanGrid. That organization had amazing sales org. I was able to quickly talk to other people that would work with him. So those early hires, if they're not directly connected to you, probably need to be 1 degree of separation, so you can really, really vet out who they are and get people that you trust to tell you if they're good or not, because those early hires at a tech company are super important. I think as you scale that organization, we haven't done this yet, I would hire, we'll do this when we raise our B, we'll hire someone in talent that's going to manage a process. We've built different hiring processes based upon if you're on the go-to-market or if you're on the engineering org. Engineering has some different needs. They want to do like an engineering challenge or something else.
How many stages of this process have you got?
It depends on the position.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the leadership position.
Well, I mean, every single person we've hired so far has been like a degree of separation. Like, it's all in network right now. So
I mean, it's going to make it easier on the startup if you can hire in network.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lower level of vetting you have to do. In terms of hiring great people, I would just startup, you have to work with everyone way too much. Like if you're at a big corporation and you hire someone, you don't actually usually have to work with them. And so like your litmus test should be, would I ever hang out with this person kind of outside of work? Like, do I think that I could get along with them? If you can't, then they're probably not good, because hopefully the organization has a bunch of people that have similar values as you, and you kind of would like hanging out with each other. So if you don't like to hang out with that person, then probably the other people won't. And we definitely miss this on a couple hires. One in particular was my fault. I over-indexed for related experience and under-indexed for personality. And it's a good kick in the butt to remind myself, like, the soft attributes kind of matter, like who they are, how they interact, how they talk to other people are quite important. So don't just hire because of a resume, because you got to work with them. Yeah. There's nowhere to hide in a startup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're all stretching ourselves so thin. Do I get to do the fired part?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, I mean, one thing, first of all,
we want specifics.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is like, we have a lot of great people, and I think it's because it's in network, and I think everyone's really passionate and cares. And I think
you haven't had to fire anyone yet.
Well, yeah.
Oh. Kinda.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I feel like I'm the only one that's let anyone go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the tough one was in the very beginning before. That was hard because let me say that then, was like, it's not just about, you have this high performing person. First off, let's say this, right? There's clarity and agency. Like if you give someone clarity on what the goal is, then they should have the agency to do it. You pay people not to tell them what to do, but for them to tell you what to do, right?
I remember who you're talking about, sorry.
Yeah, I know, it's a tough one, but it's all good. And right, so like, and then if they're not sort of meeting it or rising to the challenge, you need to be clear about what the bar is that they need to get over. If they can't, then then you've given them the time and the opportunity. But it's also not just about, are they the right person? I agree with Dustin. Personality to me is almost more important than experience. What they can do, what they're capable of versus what they have done.
It's probably a perfect example, right?
Yeah. That one to me is an example of, this is someone I worked with for 6 years. There was like my main touch point on engineering, and I had an awesome relationship with this person. And it's not just that they're the right person, but it's the right time. And it's like there's different people for different times. And there was another one that we let go that I guess maybe you did the words, but I was on the call. And again, the right person, maybe the wrong time, right? So you've got to acknowledge the timing as well. Because in a startup, you can't, in a large organization, it's like you can have a person that all they are is occupying meeting rooms forever. And who knows what the hell they do. And they can get by. But in a startup, it's like,
you need to put the work in.
You can't, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would qualify that until you get to, we're at 35 people, like everyone really, really has to embrace that they have to do stuff. Because at very big companies, you don't really have to do that much. Like you don't have to produce that much.
You can spend an hour by the coffee machine, right?
Yeah, so you just have to be ready to get shit done. And I mean, that's one of our values is you have gas, you give a shit, like you operate at high octane.
I didn't know if you could say that on this call.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who like the idea of joining a startup. You think it's fun. And they get involved and they're like, oh no, this is work. I remember what this is.
Yeah, it's quite a glamorized area as well, startups, right?
It's way harder
until people come on the inside and they're like, oh, what have I done to myself? Yeah. I find the topic of hiring very interesting because it doesn't seem that there is just like a method. Like we've asked this question to probably hundreds of people.
It depends on the stage as well, very heavily on the stage where the
very heavily. I mean, Building Connected, we went through probably a 12-month period where we added like 60 people, and that's where you can really build a process. We added 80. We had engineering sourcers and go-to-market sourcers. So they're doing outreach in order to get these people talking to us. And then we had recruiters that are like qualifying, then getting them into a circle where the hiring managers and like super programmatic. Like we could have hired, we could have scaled that to 100, 200, whatever. Early stage, you don't have any of that. I would say though, the more you do actually about marketing and branding yourself, the easier hiring is going to be. So like if you have an about page on your website, if you're vocal on LinkedIn, then you're probably going to draw candidates that are interested in your problem and therefore are going to be really good employees.
If I can jump with one more, what does leadership mean to you?
I guess I'll go is like, I am maybe reusing this, but it is the clarity in the agency. I do think that you need to, how can I put this in different words? People need to be clear on what the objective is, the why behind it, lead with the why and what the objective is, and then offer them the agency to achieve that. And the other thing I'll say that's a little softer is for someone to have gas means that they really give a shit, means that they're passionate, means they need to be vulnerable. You actually do need to be vulnerable to be passionate. And to be vulnerable, you got to feel trusted. And so you've got to figure out a way to establish that trust with someone, especially in a remote native company like we are. You've got to figure out how to get there where they feel like someone has their back. And then and that they can engage in conflict and it's okay. So that's sort of that.
I think that to be a leader in an early stage company, people have to know you care.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be a perfect individual, right? And no one is. So you're going to mess up. But they have to know you care. They also have to know you're capable. Like, I mean, I haven't met anyone that can talk estimating like in depth like Mike. Like he and technology. Like he can blur those together very, very well. So he inspires employees because Mike can sit down with any CIO and estimator and talk about how you can accomplish their tasks as well as anyone. And I hope that I inspire as a leadership because I can sit down with conviction and talk about how we're going to raise the money and how we're going to build the business and how we're going to build the team that's going to go out and do all these things. And so they're just, you have to be able to inspire that you're capable of executing on those things. And it's kind of like not definable. Like, how do you prove you're capable? Like, you can do it in a lot of ways, but one way I think you prove you're capable is like, nothing kills me more than a startup CEO that won't get out and do a demo or take a sales call or actually talk to a customer. Like, that's disgusting. I mean, and there are some, I know several that can't do it. Like, that's insane.
I think being willing to do anything. Like, I mean, if like Dustin was saying, if you
Leading
care
from the front, huh?
like more than anyone, if you run harder than anyone else, like running hard gets contagious. If someone has some task that they need to do and there's some boring, monotonous part to it, and you'll roll up your sleeves if you must and get in there, like, oh wow, okay, geez, like this is what this is. Like, you know, everyone will run harder if you run hard too.
I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the company will move at the speed of the founding team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is Ediphi's IPO story?
Ring that bell.
Or takeover.
So look, if we actually create the platform for managing pre-construction, then that would be an IPO story. And the reason it's an IPO story is it's the most important phase in all of construction. This is when you break apart design and say design's before pre-con, before construction. No, pre-construction is the phase. It's more important than construction because it's very hard to bring back a project that's had a bad pre-construction process and make it profitable.
Really hard to nose that plan out.
It's very easy to manage a project that went through a good, healthy pre-con process. You've bought everything out correctly, you got a lot of coverage, you've done some coordination, like the objectives.
Client has the right expectations.
Yeah, so there are publicly traded companies that are in construction management. There should be a company that's a publicly traded company in pre-con. The only way to do that, though, is you have to support creating the almost cost repository of that project on how cost evolved until you got out of pre-con, and that's our goal. How long does that take to get there? I don't know, 3 to 5 years, 7 years, 7 to 9 years is a long time.
Enjoyed the journey. Dustin, maybe you can draw on some of your building connected experience here, but what's your thoughts on people about building a company that is suitable for an exit?
Thoughts about
That's suitable for an exit. So is it
building
like
companies that are suitable for an exit? Like, okay, so here's the problem with a lot of companies, though. If your strategy is to build a company suitable for an exit, like not to build like a really big business, I think a lot of times you end up in precarious situations, and that you end up raising, like, if that's your goal, I think you should minimize the amount of venture capital raised. But then they do stuff that, if my goal is to be acquired, then they do stuff that's not aligned with that goal, which is, oh, I want to raise a bunch of venture capital because it's glamorous. And then all of a sudden you're like, uh-oh, my goal was to get acquired, but now I have this huge amount of capital I've raised, so the bar is way up here, but my product's really only worth here. So you have to be consistent with what you're trying to accomplish. If your goal is to be acquired, it's very easy to acquire a company that doesn't have a lot of invested capital, because they know the founder will make a lot of money and it'll be all well and good. So if your goal is purely to be acquired, raise as little amount of capital as possible. It's flat out it. If your goal is to build a publicly traded company, you can raise more capital, but there's more risk. Because now all of a sudden you've raised a lot of invested capital. At a minimum, it has a 1x liquidation preference, so you are setting the bar. Usually you're setting the bar at what the preferred shares paid the last round. So, like, yeah, there's risk. But people don't understand that.
how about from like an internal, perhaps process building perspective? Because people presumably don't want to buy like shit.
Well, I mean, like, a lot.
Or maybe they do. I don't know.
There's some companies that roll up a bunch of shit and package it together and call it something cool. I don't know. Well, I mean, one of the things that you can do, which a lot of startups do really poorly, is start building relationships with the people in corp dev that would be most likely to acquire you. I mean, I certainly, when I was at Building Connected, like, did I want to create a publicly traded company? Yeah. Did I also build relationships at Procore and Autodesk? Yeah, because I'm not an idiot. Like, who's the most likely to buy us? It's Procore and Autodesk. So I would have regular meetings with them, and I talked to them about what I'm doing. And, you know, it was kind of funny because, like, their BD people would call me and be like, oh, we're going to compete with you. I hope that's okay. I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to do it better, and then you're going to have to buy me. Haha. And they didn't end up buying Autodesk, but it was funny.
What are some good indicators that Ediphi is ready to scale or grow?
When we understand what our sort of land and expand sort of motion looks like a little better, like we have like 3 companies that I think from like a top 100 perspective, what we know that looks like, that will be one of the things, because then we can like replicate that.
How do you figure it out? Maybe
you get people in the pipeline and see how long it takes. So optimizing, see how long we can compress that initial like pilot process to get them to AHA. Actually, there's a book called Get to AHA. It was Steve Jobs' marketer, and there's a chapter dedicated to Building Connected because she did some work for us.
I actually read that book. I stumbled on it, and I'm like, what the? Dustin? The hell?
Yeah, gotta escape this guy. Arranged
Chapter
marriage.
11. My goodness, like I was like 3/4 invested into the book, and I read that, I'm like, oh, jeez.
So, I think that, I mean, every business is different. I think that the thing that I'm looking for is how easy do we make it for, well, actually what I think we're looking for is making sure that we've checked every box. That no one's saying they can do something in another application that they can't do in us. And we're going to check that off this quarter. We have like this one critical thing that, it's only critical to a subset of the market, but it's important to that subset. So getting those away. And then we have we've built an account executive team and a pilot specialist team, and we're not increasing that until they're overburdened with like their tasks or they have just too much workload. And once that happens, then we'll start adding on additional individuals.
What's your thoughts on establishing effective marketing channels?
We do hardly any. So early stage, I don't think in investing a lot in marketing. We actually just have one marketing consultant, and that's it. Everything we either do is via blogs, which are super cheap. And almost every time we release a blog, someone reaches out and said, I want to try you. It's like amazing, relatively super cheap lead gen. So you can always find some brand and imaging marketing consultants. Actually should be relatively cost effective just to get your voice out there. And it depends on the stage. So as a seed round, I wouldn't spend any more money on that than that. You should be able to build a good enough book of business on purely just outreach or network or connections and doing some guerrilla tactics. It's not till you actually need to scale, like where you want to build out this sort of SDR model, demand gen model, that I think you should be investing in sort of those top of funnel mechanisms. Now, when you do, there's sort of several cornerstones I think of most SaaS applications for construction. You need to do event marketing. There's a ton of events all over the places. If they're attending events, they're either going there for the parties and the alcohol, or they are genuinely interested in finding some solutions. So ton of events. Event marketing in this space is huge. Event marketing done well is actually quite challenging. So that's where I would invest in, having a full-time event marketer. They're coordinating the hotel, the merchandise, the stand, the speaking arrangements, who's there, everything else. Coordinate a lot, and a lot of people miss the fact that sales ops and marketing ops, they're different, but they're usually just the same person. But you have to invest in sales operations if you want to do effective marketing. You can do things though, if you really want to build marketing tooling, you can purchase a lot of data sources, and then you can build out some sequencing campaigns. So that's like demand generation, right? So you have someone building out that and building out what are the talking points and monitoring what's effective and what's not. I haven't seen a lot of success though in like SEM. Like, I don't think that one's a huge use. It depends on the search engine marketing. I think that it depends on the product though. There's probably more success in some areas than others. I doubt SEM would be great for us, but maybe we try some. It's been $10 on Google, see what happens.
So at your stage, what are methods or processes that you employ to get users' feedback?
You're running product, you can talk about it.
A lot of it right now has been conversation. It's very personal. We're arguing right now on different products that can start collecting user feedback, but like, it hasn't been some user goes into some website and enters in feedback. It's a conversation, and we synthesize that. And it's sort of like I was saying, we synthesize it into these buckets of, okay, this is related to this is related to that. Then it's sort of, like I was saying earlier, tethering that to our storyline of what we're developing, so that people feel like they're heard and that we're moving the ball forward, even though we're not making their cell yellow tomorrow.
Very good. Yeah. Okay, I guess I will close this by asking you each one question. Is there one kind of lesson learned? Maybe it was a mistake, maybe it's something you've done tremendously well that since building Ediphi that sticks with you?
Be open-minded, listen is huge. As soon as you think you know the answer, you don't.
Keep digging.
Yep. And like the most important thing, like Dustin and I were talking about arguing, share context. Like if you're gonna get into an argument, try to share context, which means you need to understand each other, which means you need to shut up and listen.
How deep or how far do you go for the feedback? If you think you understand something, but someone else is telling you don't, then you get someone else to...
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you should ever just shut anyone's opinion out and be like, no, you just don't get it. Like, you got to try to internalize. It's very hard. I had this, I was like the guy that was doing everything. Like, I didn't have this whole organization. And to then have all these professionals come in and start telling me what I was doing wrong, and that's a hard thing to go through. It feels like you're a baby. I don't think there should be any limit, though, to listening to every bit of it. And really try to keep your emotions at bay and don't let it get at you. Because, again, it's because people care and because they want what's best.
The lesson learned is, I'd kind of forgot it because I've been out of the game, is it takes longer to do things as a startup than you think it would. And to give yourself a little more buffer than you think you're going to need. because stuff comes up, and that can like just detract you from accomplishing the things that you ordinarily would. But that's kind of predictable. Shit's going to happen. So expect it. Then you're prepared for it. And then it's not affecting like, oh, well, this is delayed. No, it's not. You just forecasted it too early. You should have realized. And so don't build your plan based upon the optimum sequence of events happening. Build your plan based upon a bunch of shit happening, and then you can maybe beat your plan. It's a good reminder.
Sounds a bit like a construction project, huh?
Yeah, a lot of parallels. Yeah.
Progress.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.